My coworker switched my presentation file before the board meeting and laughed when I froze. "You'll never be ready for the big leagues," he smirked. That night, I found out he was faking credentials. So I sent one email, one line, one link, one screenshot. HR's doing a full investigation. But I'm not done, because next week I'm walking in with. I've always been the type of person who works hard and keeps to myself. I don't play office politics. I don't gossip. I don't try to impress anyone with small talk or fake smiles. I figured that if I just kept doing my job well, people would notice, that eventually I'd earn respect and get ahead. That's what I believed for years. I work in corporate strategy at a mid-sized tech company. It's the kind of place where everything looks polished on the outside, fancy offices, sleek branding, confident press releases. But inside, it's a fight. Every project is a competition. Every mistake is remembered. And people like me, quiet, careful, patient, get overlooked unless we fight back. I didn't know that then. Not fully. For 6 months, I worked on a new strategy proposal that was supposed to be my big break. The board was looking for new revenue streams, and I'd done the analysis, talked to departments across the company, even interviewed clients off hours to get real insights. I pulled long nights, skipped weekends, didn't complain. I just worked. Finally, they gave me the green light to present it directly to the board. It was the biggest moment of my career so far. I triple-checked every slide, reviewed every data point. I rehearsed it until I could do it in my sleep. My manager was proud, said it was finally my time. I even bought a new shirt for the meeting. The presentation was scheduled for a Thursday at 9:30 a.m. I came in early that day, around 7:45, just to run through the deck one last time. I went into the main conference room and loaded my file from the company's shared drive, the folder that only I had access to. And that's when I realized something was wrong. The title slide was mine. But as soon as I clicked to the next one, I saw mismatched fonts, charts that didn't line up, random numbers, pages missing, whole sections gone. Some slides were just blank with placeholder text. My stomach dropped. I checked the file name. It looked the same. Same format. Same folder. But this wasn't my work. I tried not to panic. Maybe I'd uploaded the wrong version? Maybe it was a corrupted file? I dug through the drive, but every backup looked like this. I didn't know what to do. I still had 20 minutes. I couldn't fix it in time. At 9:30, the board filed in 8 people in suits and heels with coffee cups and tight schedules. I stood at the front of the room and started talking, hoping I could bluff my way through it. But I couldn't. The numbers didn't match what I'd written down. I couldn't explain slides I didn't make. I fumbled. I paused too long. I saw 2 people exchange glances. After 5 minutes, the COO interrupted me and said something like, "Let's circle back to this next quarter." Then they moved on to the next item on the agenda. I stood there, holding the clicker completely numb. I walked back to my seat slowly. I remember feeling my face burn. Then from a few chairs down, I heard a chuckle. I looked over and it was Jeremy. He leaned back, smiling like it was funny. And then he said it quiet under his breath, but clear as day, "You'll never be ready for the big leagues." He looked straight ahead like he hadn't said anything. Nobody else heard him. Nobody saw the look on my face. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just sat there and pretended to take notes for the rest of the meeting. I didn't even hear what anyone else said. My hands were shaking under the table. The rest of that day, I was on autopilot. People avoided me in the hallway. My manager didn't say much, just told me to take the weekend to regroup. I went home that night feeling completely broken. But I couldn't let it go. I needed to understand how it happened. I couldn't prove it, but I knew it was Jeremy. He was the only one who had anything to gain from me failing. He'd been eyeing the same promotion for months. He was always in the meetings I wasn't invited to, always schmoozing with the higher-ups. He acted like we were friends sometimes, but I always got the sense he thought I was beneath him. Still, I needed proof. I logged into the company drive from home and started looking at the file history. There it was, 2 nights before the presentation at 11:43 p.m., The file had been accessed and edited by Jeremy's credentials. I took a screenshot. I didn't say anything yet. I wanted to be sure. The more I thought about it, the more I remembered things he'd said over the past few months. Little digs. You sure you're ready for this? Some people just don't have executive presence. You're great with numbers, but they're looking for leaders. It had always felt patronizing. I'd brushed it off. Now it felt like groundwork. I went to our internal directory and pulled his resume. Fancy business school. International experience. Fast promotions. It had always seemed a little too perfect. So I started checking. I went to the university alumni portal and typed in his name. Nothing. Then I went to the official degree verification site and searched again. Still nothing. I texted a friend of mine in recruiting and asked if she could run a credential check for me. She owed me a favor, so she did. 30 minutes later, she texted, "He's not in any of the systems. Either he changed his name or this is fake." I felt sick, not just because of what he did to me, but because this guy had been getting praise, promotions, and praise based on a complete lie, while people like me worked quietly in the background, ignored. I took screenshots of everything. His resume, the failed degree verification, the access logs. Then I opened a blank email and attached them. All I wrote was, "Please see attached regarding Jeremy M. Urgent." I sent it to HR. That was it. No drama. No explanation. Just the truth. That was 5 days ago. Since then, things have been tense. HR hasn't said anything to me directly, but I've seen the signs. Jeremy got called into a meeting with legal. He came out looking pale. He hasn't been smiling since. People are whispering. I heard someone say they were doing a full credential audit across senior staff now. And yesterday, my manager stopped by and said, "The board wants to give you another opportunity to present. Next week, clean slate." I just nodded. But next week, I'm not walking in like before. I'm not going in just to prove I belong. I'm going in to show every single one of them who Jeremy really is. I'm not just fixing what he broke. I'm flipping the table. The day after I was told I'd get another shot at presenting, things at work changed fast. People were acting weird around me. Not in a hostile way, just careful. A few coworkers who used to ignore me started making small talk. One even asked if I was okay. I think word got out that something serious was going on with Jeremy, and people were trying to figure out what I knew. Jeremy didn't say a word to me. Not that day. Not the next. He kept his head down, barely looked up from his desk. That smirk he always wore? Gone. But I wasn't celebrating. I didn't feel relief. I felt like I was holding a lit match in a room full of gasoline. Everything felt sharp, on edge. HR hadn't responded to my email directly, but I knew they were taking it seriously. A few department heads had scheduled changes. Legal was sitting in on more meetings than usual. Our team lead was pulled into a closed-door session that ran almost 2 hours. And then Jeremy's name disappeared from project calendar. But that wasn't the only thing. On Thursday, I got an anonymous email from a burner address. No subject line, just 2 lines. "Be careful. He's not going down alone. Check the Q4 numbers he signed off on." That was it. At first I thought it was a joke, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Q4 numbers? That was Jeremy's project. He led the financial summary presented at the last board meeting, huge revenue growth, a tight new budget model, a whole speech about efficiency. It's what got him noticed in the first place. I opened the report he submitted and started going through it again, line by line. It was 42 pages long. Took me most of the night. On page 17, I saw something weird. A number that didn't match the raw data we had stored from accounting. It was small, like a rounding issue, but it didn't make sense. So I kept digging. I found 5 more rounding issues, all of them small, but all of them helped the narrative he was building: increase margins, better cost control, faster growth. I pulled the raw data for each department. Slowly it added up. They weren't mistakes. They were lies hidden behind formatting and footnotes. He hadn't just faked a degree. He faked our Q4 performance, a report that was used to make real decisions. I saved everything. I created a side-by-side document, his numbers, the real ones, a red highlight for every lie. I didn't send it yet. I wanted to be careful. I wanted to be sure. The next morning, Jeremy came into work late. His face looked like he hadn't slept. I saw him talking to the director of HR, whispering like he was trying to negotiate something. That's when I realized he knew it was me. He didn't have proof, but he knew. Around noon, I went to grab coffee from the break room. When I came back, my computer was unlocked. I always lock my screen. Always. I opened the security logs. There it was, 11:58 a.m. My terminal logged activity for 34 seconds. A file had been copied to a USB drive. Not opened, not moved. Copied. I felt like my heart stopped. I didn't even know what file. It just listed a timestamp and that a device was connected. It could have been anything. I had documents open from the Q4 review, Jeremy's access logs, my own deck for next week's presentation. I froze for a second. Then I yanked the Ethernet cable from my laptop. I emailed IT from my phone and reported unauthorized access. Then I shut everything down. Jeremy had crossed a line. Again, I didn't care about playing it smart anymore. I sent HR a second email. No screenshots. No comm summary. Just one line. If he accessed my terminal, check the USB logs. This is the second time. 3 hours later, security came to our floor. They walked straight past me and into Jeremy's office. 10 minutes later, they came out with his laptop. He didn't come out for another hour. And when he did, his face was blank. He didn't even look at me. He just walked out of the office with his bag, left early, didn't say goodbye. Later that day, HR called me in. They asked a lot of questions. Some I couldn't answer. Some I could. I showed them the Q4 discrepancies. I showed them the red highlights. I handed them a folder. When I left the room, one of them thanked me. Not casually, carefully. I don't think Jeremy's just in trouble. I think he's exposed something bigger than anyone expected. And now, I'm not just some quiet analyst who got humiliated in front of the board. Now they're listening. 2 days after HR took Jeremy's laptop, everything got quiet. Too quiet. He stopped showing up. His calendar was wiped clean. Our team got a vague message saying he was on leave. But no one said why. No one told me anything either. I was in the dark, waiting, still prepping for my second chance in front of the board, but walking on eggshells the whole time. Then, on Monday, I was pulled into a meeting with legal. Not HR, not my manager. Legal. There were 2 people in the room. One of them introduced himself as a senior compliance officer. He said he wanted to clarify the nature of the documents I shared. He asked how I accessed Jeremy's resume, how I ran the degree check, who helped me. I told the truth. I didn't lie. I told them I used public info. I had a friend in recruiting who helped confirm it. I showed them the email I got from the anonymous burner too, the one that tipped me off about the Q4 numbers. That's when things changed. They asked more about the email, where I got it, if I knew who sent it. I said no. I still don't. But they seemed very interested in that one line, "He's not going down alone." They started asking about other people Jeremy worked with, if I'd seen him talking to anyone in finance, if I'd ever overheard him say anything about covering up for others. They even asked about 2 directors I'd barely spoken to, people above my level. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Jeremy. This was bigger. He wasn't just faking a degree or fudging numbers to make himself look good. There were whispers now that Q4's success had helped justify budget cuts, layoffs, and bonus decisions at the exec level. If those numbers were false, the people who used them to make decisions might have known, or at least suspected. And if that's true, then my quiet little revenge just cracked open something major. After that meeting, I was told not to discuss anything I'd shared with anyone, not even my manager. I was also told I'd be presenting to the board the following Thursday, but not just my proposal. They wanted me to include a transparency review of prior data assumptions. In other words, I was being asked to walk into the boardroom and say, out loud that the company's golden boy had lied, and maybe others helped. I spent the next 4 days building the most careful, precise deck of my life. I used plain charts, black and white layouts, nothing flashy, just numbers, real ones, data you couldn't argue with. Every slide had sources, timestamps, verification. But while I was working on it, I got another email. No subject, same burner address. This time it just said, "They'll try to pin this all on him. Don't let them." I stared at it for 10 minutes. That night, I went home and started printing, not just my deck, but emails, logs, every screenshot, every note. I put it all in a binder, just in case. And then, 2 nights before the presentation, I got a LinkedIn message. It was from someone I didn't know, former employee. She used to work in finance. Her profile said she left last year. The message said, "Saw your name in a group chat. Just wanted you to know he's done this before." She didn't say more. I wrote back, asked if she'd talk. She said she couldn't. Not officially, but she told me to look at Q2 reports from last year. Said the patterns were the same. Then she deleted her messages and unmatched. So I looked, and she was right. The same weird rounding, the same shifting of categories to make things look more optimized, the same fake confidence built into the spreadsheets. Jeremy had been doing this for over a year, and no one caught it, or they did and chose not to care. Now, the board wants me to say it all out loud, clean and careful, so they can claim they had no idea. But the truth is, someone did. Someone always knows. And now they know I know. The night before the board meeting, I didn't sleep. I kept going over every slide, every number, every word. I rehearsed it out loud until my throat hurt. I wasn't just presenting a proposal anymore. I was presenting a threat to the version of the company they wanted to believe in. At 2 a.m., I checked my personal email one last time. There was a message waiting, not from a burner. This time it came from a real name, a director from finance, someone still with the company, someone who had been close with Jeremy. The subject line was, "Let's not make this messy." In the body of the email, he wrote, "We're aware of your upcoming deck. Some of your conclusions may be based on incomplete context. You've proven your point, and it's been noted. Don't let ambition cloud your future here." No threats, just that fake politeness tone wrapped in HR speak and warning signs. I stared at it for 10 minutes. I didn't respond, but I saved it. The next morning, I came in early. The boardroom was already being prepped. A tray of pastries, water bottles lined up. Someone had connected the projector already. I stood by the window and watched the city for a while. That's when my manager walked in. She closed the door and said quietly, "I got pulled into a meeting last night. Just wanted to say, don't back down." That was it. She left, didn't stay to explain, but her face said it all. Someone, somewhere, was trying to get this buried, quickly and quietly. And maybe some people were okay with that, but not her, and not me. The meeting started at 9 o'clock sharp. 12 people around the table. Ku, CFO, legal, 3 board members. My hands were cold, but when I stood up and opened my deck, something shifted. I wasn't afraid anymore. I went slide by slide. First, my proposal, clean and direct. Then, halfway through, I changed tone. I said, "Before I continue, I need to clarify something." That's when I brought up the discrepancies in the Q4 numbers. I showed the slides with the false growth, the mismatched cost categories, the audit trail. I didn't use his name at first. I just let the numbers speak. I explained how decisions were made based on bad inputs, layoffs, budget shifts, forecasting errors. Then I said, the data was manipulated intentionally. Here is how we verified that. That's when the room changed. Some people shifted in their chairs. One board member looked directly at the CFO. Another started writing something down fast. I kept going. I showed the file logs. I showed the USB activity. I showed a snapshot of the degree check. I never speculated, just stated facts. Then I said, there's a pattern of behavior here. It didn't start last quarter, and it likely didn't end there either. After that, I stopped talking. Silence. Then someone asked a question not about the proposal, but about why I had done all this. I told them I hadn't planned any of it, that it started because someone sabotaged my work, that I didn't come looking for revenge. I just wanted to tell the truth, because someone had lied, and the company let them. The room stayed quiet for a while. Then the general counsel asked to pause for a sidebar. Everyone stepped out, one by one. I sat alone in that boardroom for 15 minutes. When they came back, they didn't say much, just that they appreciated the clarity and would be following up in due course. But I saw it. Their faces. Something had cracked open. When I got back to my desk, my badge access was already changed. I couldn't log into the shared drive. An email came in from legal asking me not to speak to the press. I hadn't even considered it. But now I wondered if someone else might. Then, that afternoon, I got another message. Not an email. A folded note left on my chair. It said, "He has a copy. He's not gone. He's waiting." I froze, because I knew exactly what it meant. Jeremy hadn't been fired. Not yet. He was probably negotiating, or threatening. And if he had a copy of the burner email or the audit trail, or something from my folder, he could still hit back. And I realized something else. He wasn't acting alone. The moment I read that note, "He has a copy. He's not gone. He's waiting." Everything inside me locked up. I'd been so focused on the numbers, the board, the investigation, that I forgot who I was really dealing with. Jeremy wasn't careless. He didn't just fake his way into this job, he built a persona. He'd kept it alive for years. And people protected him. Not because they liked him, but because he made them look good, or because they were complicit. I knew he wasn't going to disappear quietly. That night, I went home and sat in front of my laptop for hours. I tried to think like him. If he had a copy of something, what would it be? It wouldn't be the burner emails. They came to me, not him. It had to be something from my system. Something copied during that 34-second USB breach. I checked everything again, slowly, and then I found it. An early version of the side-by-side document I built, the one comparing his falsified Q4 data with the raw figures. But this version had something I forgot about, a comment at the bottom. One line I typed for myself when I was working on it at 2 a.m. "He's not the only one, I'm sure of it now." That's what he had. It was vague. It didn't name anyone, but it was enough to use, to twist, to tell the board, "She's making this bigger than it is. She's trying to drag others down with her." And that's exactly what he did. The next morning, I was called into another meeting, this time with legal, HR, and an outside consultant. I knew right away something had changed. The tone was different, colder, more careful. They said there were questions about the scope of my investigation. They asked if I had accused any other executives of misconduct. They said someone had submitted a document showing I was implying systemic corruption. I didn't deny it. I told them the truth again. I said I didn't accuse anyone. I shared numbers, data, verified facts. That's all I had done. They said they'd be reviewing everything again. I left the room feeling sick. This is how it happens, I thought. This is how the truth gets buried under red tape and vague language and fear. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I was pissed. That night, I opened the binder I'd built, the one I kept at home. I copied every file onto a secure flash drive and mailed it, anonymously, to the whistleblower hotline at our corporate regulator's office. I knew what I was doing. 2 days later, everything broke open. A news story ran on a small business outlet site. Tech firm faces internal audit after financial irregularities and fake credentials surface. No names, no company listed, but it was us. Anyone in the industry would know. Inside the company, panic set in. Board members started stepping down to explore other opportunities. The CFO announced his early retirement. Legal sent a company-wide email reminding employees not to speak to journalists. And Jeremy? He finally got fired. Not laid off. Not resigned. Fired. For cause. It came through a formal notice. His credentials were fake. His numbers were falsified. He'd accessed protected files without authorization. And then came the real moment of closure. 3 weeks after the news story broke, I was called in again to present, but not to the board. This time, to external investigators. They asked me to walk them through the files, the timelines, the whistleblower documents. They listened. They took notes. They thanked me. And when I left that meeting, I didn't feel scared anymore. I felt clean. I still work at the same company. For now. But things aren't the same. I've had 3 other employees come to me in private, thank me, tell me their own stories, things they stayed quiet about because they thought it would go nowhere. And Jeremy? Last I heard, he's under investigation for fraud. The job history on his LinkedIn vanished. His MBA listing is gone. And rumor has it one of the companies he worked for is suing him for impersonation. I don't celebrate it, but I don't feel bad either. He tried to ruin my career in front of the board. He switched my file, laughed in my face, told me I'd never be ready for the big leagues. And all I did was show them who he really was. I never raised my voice. I never lied. I never hit back harder than what was done to me. But now, I sit in meetings where people stop talking when I enter because they know. And that's the revenge I never planned, but will never regret.